Hello YouTube. Bane666 here. Welcome to part 4 of The Propaganda of Toxic Feminism. Let's get stuck into it. No doubt, everyone who has watched parts 1 to 3 has felt angry and frustrated at the misinformation that has been thrown around about the men's rights movement. The video you are about to watch is pretty much the same, but before you run off to our channel, leaving angry comments, I suggest you watch this entire segment, as there is a positive surprise at the end. But let's start with the video.
Okay, so I just wanted to address something yet again. I know it's been drummed into everyone's heads repeatedly, especially lately with the recent news of Elliot Rodger's murders. I tried my hardest not to let this interfere with my daily life. I really did, until today a man told me that feminism is no longer relevant. I'm not sure if he's been paying attention to recent events, so I took the time to enlighten him. Men's rights activism. I don't know how it started, but men caught wind of it, and now it occupies this seedy little grotto of the internet where men will just come in and fester all these little ideas about how they hate women and how women are horrible creatures. I feel like pickup artistry, genuinely used to help men improve on their game, I guess you could say, when pursuing an actual person of interest, as opposed to techniques manipulating girls into having sex with them, which somehow also... Anyway, I'm going to try to avoid making a long post about this, because there's nothing I can say that hasn't already been said, and I will post articles below that pretty much sum up the entire issue for me. And if you have anything else to add, of course you can add it in the comments. It's not like I have any subscribers or anyone who would comment anyway, but if you on a whim feel like you should, that's great. I would love to hear your opinions. The main point I wanted to make is that feminism, not to be confused with feminazism, making that a word now, feminism is about gender equality in the sense of education, workplace, voting rights, and so on, Men's rights activism seems to be purely focused on how society is somehow becoming pussy-whipped and it needs to be reclaimed as some sort of masculine domain where men can get all the sex that they desire. Men's rights activism seems to be almost solely based on the hatred of women and a man's entitlement to acquiring the sex that he wants. Congratulations, guys. I'm gonna hand it to you for proving time and time again how feminism is no longer relevant.
So as you see, a typical view of men's rights from someone calling themselves a feminist. She even links to the cracked article. So I decided to leave a comment. Unlike most others who have been featured in the series, she replied to my comment. So I answered her questions. I'll admit to be a little surprised and pleased by her response. I believe in giving credit where credit is due. This young woman actually listened to an alternative point of view, considered the information presented to her, and admitted she was wrong in judging the men's rights movement. In my experience, this is a very rare thing from someone who self-identifies as a feminist. For example,
And like I was saying, I got a whole bunch of negative comments on my last video, and that doesn't, like, bother me in particular, but it is a little bit disheartening when you make a video about something that's really important to you, and people just sort of, like, knock you down limb by limb, and it's like, nah, like, even if you, like, still know that you're right, and you know whatever, it's just a little bit disheartening.
So I have to say, well done April Charlie, for showing us that not all feminists are like that. I suggested to Doom Rules that he might want to do a Google Hangout with her, or maybe the Honey Badgers could contact her and see if she is interested, just a suggestion. I think such discussions could be interesting. I think it's important to reach out to feminists like this one, and show that we are not all basement-dwelling, fedora-wearing, rapists. After all, some of the most respected voices in the men's rights movement are ex-feminists. Okay, so now onto the negative. Oh joy.
Yay.
First, an introduction. Hi, I'm Mark. I'm 24, plainly a white male, and I'm straight. I'm Canadian, I've got a degree in physics, and I'm gainfully stably employed outside of YouTube, and I have my own apartment.
Hello Mark, nice to meet you. You seem rather positive. Maybe this won't be too bad after all.
But I'm not saying it's been easy. I've been suicidal twice in my life. First when I was 11 and second when I was 20. And I can speak with a lot of empathy to those people who feel lost and alone and purposeless and helpless and angry at things they can't even properly articulate or understand. I might not be able to directly relate to all your situations. I can't directly relate to all your situations, but I can feel empathy. I might not be the best at showing it, but I can feel.
Wow. This is good. You sound like someone who might have some kind of understanding of the men's rights movement. Especially considering the high male suicide rate, and the fact you have tried suicide twice, you must have a good understanding of at least some of the issues men have to deal with. This video is turning out to be a lot more positive than I would have guessed.
In other words, I get my privilege.
Oh no, he had to use the P word. And here I was being hopeful.
And by refusing to speak against it, the silent majority supports the oppressor, not the oppressed. So let's talk about those oppressors. Well, they're not oppressors in their minds. To them, they're the oppressed. They're the victims. That's part of the problem. They're the ones that send rape and death threats to any woman who points out the slightest facet of their little world that might be sexist. They're the ones who, in every discussion surrounding issues of rape, or sexual abuse, or quotas, and equality, and gender roles, jump in with a tirade of bile that only serves to completely ruin the few valid points they might have.
Wow. Whoever this group is, they sound horrific. Who are they? Some kind of mutant Nazi Ku Klux Klan or something?
Men's rights activist, if you can't tell, I'm talking about you. And let me start by saying I get it. Yeah, men can be abused and raped, and it's wrong how society laughs it off. Yes, it is an unequal system that family court systems tend to support the mother in divorce proceedings. Yeah, universities have quotas, even if they don't want to admit it. And you know, you typically aren't on the list. And yes, modern society is sending out a very confused message to men these days. It's very difficult to articulate what being a man is today. And yeah, there are hiring policies being implemented across the world. If they're not already in place, that means others who have not had the same opportunities you would have had, and who might not have had as strong qualifications as you currently do, will get hired first.
Okay, so now I am just confused. You seem to not only know a lot of our issues, but agree with them.
And I'm here to tell you that all these would be a lot more relevant if they weren't a tiny fraction of what women and minority groups go through in analogous cases and have gone through for decades.
There are 4 main methods that feminists use to try to discredit the issues that men face. 1. They claim that men's issues just don't exist. Somehow, all men, everywhere, throughout all of time, have had nothing but good times. But some people realize that there is abundant evidence against this, which can't be denied, so they use the second method. 2. Men's issues are solely the fault of men, therefore, don't count. Usually there is a patriarchy, or 2, thrown in there for good measure as well. But clearly all of men's issues are not solely the fault of men. Therefore some people will move on to the third method. 3. Men's issues are just not as important as women's issues, so we should focus solely on female issues, and then one day, once the patriarchy is crushed, we will fix things for the men's. There is usually a line thrown in there, somewhere, about women having always been oppressed, so in other words, It's time for males to be the oppressed ones now. But method 3 really doesn't sound like equality, does it? I mean, equality would be fixing things for everyone, not putting some groups ahead of others. Shouldn't all victims of rape, regardless of gender, be taken seriously, for example? And it's because of this, some use method number 4. 4. Use propaganda to paint all members of the men's rights movement as hate-filled, racist, misogynistic, fedora-wearing, mother's basement-dwelling, losers, who couldn't get laid in a discount whorehouse. Not to mention they all have small penises and are probably rapists. So to sum up. 1. Men don't have issues. 2. Men are to blame. 3. Men's issues don't count. And 4. Rapists with little dicks. Needless to say, if they have to resort to the fourth method, not only do they not have any arguments, but they know we are right. And the Elliot Rodger shooting was a godsend to those who used the fourth method. But let's see what Mark has to say next.
Sometimes to move towards equalization, you gotta have a strong push in the opposite direction. That's not feminism, that's basic equality through math. That's making up the difference. And that's not discounting the cases you describe, because depending on the circumstance, they can be still quite valid. But at this point, they're the exception, they're not the rule. And the numbers don't show anything close to equivalency.
But of course he never supplies the numbers. Or even explains what the numbers are for. We are just meant to take his word for it. This is, of course, the perfect example of method 3.
So equating them in an argument is intellectual dishonesty at best, and I'm fairly certain you all know that. But to be fair, those are the issues with merit that are worth discussing and debating rationally. That's not touching on the rape and death threats leveled at online against any woman who dares criticize traditionally male-dominated media, like music, or comics, or video games. That's not touching the slut-shaming that gets hurled at every female musical act. Hell, every female act in entertainment who comes across as overly sexual in their presentation. That's not discounting the firebombing of any sane discussion of depictions of rape, or the gendered insults that show up time and time again and are seemingly tolerated for some asinine reason.
Wow, so what Mark is doing here is falsely equating the men's rights movement with every single troll, critic, or idiot who has ever left a comment on the internet. Wow, who knew our numbers were so large? This is of course just an attempt at method 4.
That's not touching on the shooting by a linked men's rights activist.
Once again, no evidence, just propaganda. Elliot Rodger was not a men's rights activist, he had no connection to the movement. There isn't even any evidence that he knew of its existence.
Who wasn't just a white heterosexual male about my age.
Yeah, here we go with the race card again. Just a note to anyone who is going to play the white privilege card, or the evil white male card, in the future. You should probably be sure of the person's race before doing so. You see, Elliot was biracial.
Now, I'm not saying that you're all like him. Of course you're not. That guy had psychological issues beyond the norm. That's fairly obvious. But you enabled his way of thinking.
Once again, considering there is no connection between the men's rights movement and Elliot Rodger, I would just love to know how exactly we enabled his thinking.
Okay. I spent enough time observing the forums and the MRA subreddits. I've seen more than a few manifestos to which he could have cribbed plenty of notes, if not his entire case.
Once again, Mark shows no examples, just his word, just his opinion, and we are prevented from judging these posts for ourselves. Sorry mate, your opinion is not evidence. And as I have said countless times before, and no doubt will say countless times again, I am more than happy to compare the worst of the men's rights movement to the worst of the feminist movement, any day of the week. You know the old saying mate, people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. And while the MRM shuns its idiots and bigots, the feminist movement embraces them, and gets them jobs as gender studies professors, to indoctrinate the next generation of idiots and bigots. Every group has its bad element at its fringe. But in feminism, It's the good element, which is at the fringe.
And there are a whole load of you who are looking to make excuses now that he's gone and killed people, saying, you never go that far. Congratulations. You reached the basic standards of existing in a society by not killing people. Do you want a goddamn cookie?
Fuck the cookie. I would be happy with the basic recognition that men have issues as well, and to be able to work on fixing those issues, without the interference of feminists and social justice warriors. You know, to actually do something, without dishonest arseholes spreading lies, or making threats of violence. Not that much to ask, is it?
I've read enough of the forums, and I've seen enough of the statistics to know that the MRA community isn't all bitter, disenfranchised men in their mid-40s or older. In fact, most of you are my age, or younger, and with the internet, you don't know what consequences are. You can fire off illiterate rape tweets with one hand and shakily masturbate in the other window with the other. You blame women for your sexual frustration, and they think that they should all be back in the kitchen making you sandwiches and catering to your every whim. Or at least, not sleeping with that guy at the bar with the doofy haircut and the dumb but friendly smile.
As you can see, Mark's a bit of a smart cookie, because he is using a combo of methods 3 and 4. He knows that there are legitimate men's rights issues, he has even admitted it, so no one in his comments section can claim he is ignorant of the facts. But he goes on to not only claim that these issues just aren't as important, but he uses method 4 to really try to discredit the men's rights movement. April Charlie, who I featured in my first segment, would appear to be someone who has just been misled, who has been given some bad info, and therefore can be reasoned with. And it would seem, she really is interested in equality. Whereas Mark here, and others like him, know that they are full of shit. They know they are being dishonest and deceptive, and in my experience, people like this can't be reasoned with. They don't want to be reasoned with, because they enjoy the taste of the poison Kool-Aid way too much. But from here, it gets worse.
Men's rights activists. There are legitimate grievances and arguments that you have, but overshadowing them is a cancer in your community, and you need to burn it out in the same way that the heavy metal community forcibly excised neo-Nazi groups when they started to creep in. Enough with the manifestos and the entitlement and the targets you think are easy because you can say whatever you want online. Because continuing to push in this toxic direction only makes the valid cases in your favor come across as so much worse.
So if you think Mark's ranting was bad, well, wait until you see this. From Time. The toxic appeal of the men's rights movement. I have to ask, what the fuck Time? I always thought Time had some degree of credibility, have they now turned into Jezebel? Anyway, let's rip apart this piece of crap. A growing movement driven by misogyny and resentment is pulling in frustrated men struggling with changing definitions of masculinity. A men's fitness columnist on why they should walk away. Oh, I can tell this is going to be good, doesn't sound biased at all so far. Let's continue. Imagine a kid who got a cone with 3 scoops of ice cream in it. Good flavors, too. Like peanut butter chocolate, plus a scoop of cookie dough. In a waffle cone. And then this child whines about the lack of chocolate sprinkles on top. Welcome to the men's rights movement. Ah, I see, here we have the old, men have all the rights already, routine. Someone tried this very technique on me just last week, and I pointed out to her, very helpfully, that men still do not have the right to bodily integrity in the West, unlike women. She had no choice but to concede the point, but followed it up with, but that's the fault of men, not women. Funny thing is, I had never said it was the fault of women, or men, or anyone for that matter. I had just pointed out the fact that this was a right, held in Western society by women, but not by men. But back to the article. So before discussing any issues the men's rights movement fights for, the author compares us to spoiled children who are not getting their own way. You know, things like the sentencing gap, where men receive sentences that are 63% higher, on average, than their female counterparts. Shouldn't that be an issue of equality? Well, not according to this arsehole, apparently wanting equality in sentencing. You know, a basic human right is just being a spoiled brat. But let's continue. Wait, what? Men's rights? That's a thing? Yes, It's a thing, and while there are certain legitimate aspects to men's rights activism, or MRA, it's overwhelmingly a toxic slew of misogyny. This world of resentment and hate speech has been brought to light in recent days as we learned about the vitriolic forum posts and videos left behind by Elliot Rodger, the 22-year-old accused of killing 6 people in Santa Barbara last week. But it's hard to comprehend from Rodger's delusional rants how potent the movement's message can be for ordinary men. Ah, so here we go again. Just like our friend Mark did earlier, this author admits that there are real issues, but then tries to dismiss them with propaganda and bullshit. Once again we see the attempt to tie Elliot Rodger to the men's rights movement, with zero evidence provided. Once again we see claims of hate speech and misogyny. Let's continue. MRAs believe the traditionally oppressed groups have somehow seized control and taken away their white male privilege. They tap into fear and insecurity and turn it into blame and rage. Often the leaders of these groups are men who feel as though they got screwed in a divorce. They quote all sorts of statistics about child custody and unfair alimony payments, because in their minds, the single mother who has to choose between feeding the kids or paying the rent is a myth. They believe passionately in their own victimhood, and their creed goes something like this: women are trying to keep us down, usurp all our power, taking away what it means to be a man. Wow, this doesn't sound biased at all. Once again we see the tactic of trying to paint the entire movement as a group of privileged white guys who are just spoiled arseholes. As I pointed out time and time again in part 3 of this series, not only is our movement made up of people of all ethnicities and genders, not just white and male, but we are fighting for the rights of all men, not just those who are white. The sentencing gap, for example, isn't about white male privilege. In fact, the group that benefits the most from the sentencing gap is white females. They are the ones who are least likely to be convicted, or least likely to receive a long sentence if convicted, for exactly the same crime. How exactly is favoritism toward white females in sentencing an example of white male privilege? I would love anyone to tell me. Next. One popular MRA site is avoiceformen.com, with a mission to expose misandry on all levels in our culture and denounce the institution of marriage as unsafe and unsuitable for modern men, as well as promote an end to chivalry in any form or fashion and educate men and boys about the threats they face in feminist governance. They also want an end to rape hysteria and promote civil disobedience. In their defense, AVFM does support nonviolence, but with all the inflammatory rhetoric, do readers always take heed? So I have to ask, what is wrong with exposing misandry? What is wrong with saying sexism, or hatred towards males is wrong? And why should men get married these days, when they run the risk of being destroyed in the divorce court, not to mention most likely losing their kids? You just have to look at the statistics to see how the already high male suicide rate increases even more when going through a divorce, to see that marriage is a far greater risk to men than it is to women. And I am not suggesting that all women are bad, or that there aren't women who go through hell during a divorce as well, but I think it's pretty bloody evident that this is an issue that destroys far more males than females. So why shouldn't men boycott marriage, at least until the divorce and family courts are reformed? I have to ask, what is wrong with ending chivalry? If males and females are equal, then why should females get special treatment? I would think that this is something that many feminists would also agree with, at least in principle, if not in practice. I have to ask, what is wrong with educating men and boys about feminism? Oh right, sorry, I forgot that feminism is a sacred cow that under no circumstance can be criticized. You know, kind of like the church in Europe, in the Middle Ages, accusing anyone of questioning it, of being a heretic. And lastly, I have to ask, what is wrong with ending rape hysteria? Even RAINN, the Rape Abuse and Incest National Network, came out against the use of the term rape culture. I think rape is a serious issue, but feminist rape hysteria doesn't help anyone. It actually makes things worse.
Now watch these protesters shout down a speaker.
It's a shame that you're using tactics to silence people.
We will not be silenced.
The speaker, a left-leaning anarchist concerned about police overreach, had once defended the idea of due process for those accused of sexual assault. Well, the rape culture activists were having none of it. They may think of their movement as progressive and world-improving. In reality, it's just the opposite. Professors at Oberlin, Rutgers, UCSB, they've been urged to place trigger warnings on class syllabi because they have books like The Great Gatsby or Things Fall Apart, which contain misogynist violence. Students at Boston University have demanded that a Robin Thicke concert be canceled. His hit song, Blurred Lines, is supposedly a rape anthem. Meanwhile, the list of schools being sued for their horrific mistreatment of falsely accused young men is growing. Presumed guilty is the new legal principle where sex is concerned. This movement will not help victims, but it will turn our campuses into hostile environments for free speech and for due process. It's already happening. And so far, university officials, political leaders, the White House, they're siding with the mob. What is going on? It appears that we're in the throes of one of those panics where paranoia, censorship, false accusations flourish, and otherwise sensible people abandon their critical faculties.
So yeah, rape hysteria is a problem. So what exactly does the author of the Time article think is so evil about any of these issues from A Voice for Men? Was that the worst the author could find on AVFM? Because it's hardly a smoking gun, is it? It's hardly a den of hate-filled misogynists. It just sounds like a list of issues that need discussion to me. Oh well, at least the author isn't quoting Reddit. Next. There are Reddit threads and other internet forums dedicated to men's rights, and the language and vitriol towards women and especially towards feminism is appalling. Any messages of non-violence seem lost in the hate-mongering. These groups spew logically faulty statistics about the prevalence of male rape and spousal abuse, and how there really is no glass ceiling or pay inequality, and general complaints about how that bitch got my promotion because she has a uterus. Oh shit, I spoke too soon, here he is quoting Reddit. I should have guessed. As I have previously stated, I am more than happy to compare the worst of the men's rights movement to the worst of the feminist movement, any day. The author claims we spew logically faulty statistics, yet fails to give examples or reasons why the statistics are logically faulty. By logically faulty, I guess he means statistics that don't agree with the feminist agenda. Next. Men's Rights Canada made headlines again recently with their classless response to an anti-sexual assault campaign called, "Don't Be That Guy." Posters went up across the nation implying women aren't punished enough for infanticide, stating, "Women can stop baby dumping. Don't be that girl." This was a follow-up of the same campaign from last year alleging many women made false rape accusations because they felt guilty over a one-night stand. Okay, I am not going to spend a great deal of time discussing the "Don't Be That Guy" poster campaign and its counter-campaigns, as these have been discussed at great lengths in the past. But I will cover the issue briefly, just in case this is new to someone out there. Could you imagine an anti-drug campaign telling African Americans not to sell drugs? It would be offensive, right? Because it would be using a stereotype of African Americans, it would be singling out one group unfairly, it would be placing all the blame solely on that group, which would be both unfair and illogical, because the vast majority of that group haven't committed the crime, and not only members of that group are guilty of that crime. So now let's replace the words African American with male, and selling drugs with rape. Could you imagine an anti-rape campaign telling males not to rape? It should be offensive, right? Because it would be using a stereotype of males, it would be singling out one group unfairly, it would be placing all the blame solely on that group, which would be both unfair and illogical, because the vast majority of that group haven't committed the crime, and not only members of that group are guilty of that crime. The counter-campaign was simply trying to point this out, by making females the unfairly targeted group, to prove a point. And you know what? It pissed off a lot of people. It would seem that it's perfectly okay to target males unfairly, but pointing out this bigotry by reversing the genders is somehow heresy. Next. As a white man who writes about fitness, I'm very aware of the pressures on men and the many ways that these kinds of hateful messages reach my audience, both overt like the Canada ads and the less blatant claims of male victimhood in mainstream media. It's clear that the definition of masculinity is in flux, and for some men that's frustrating, especially with near pornographic ad campaigns promoting women as objects of sexual conquest. And while there are aspects of MRA that are worth bringing to light, as a movement it can suck a good man down a rabbit hole of resentment. It is backward-looking and pining for good old days that never were. Once again, the author shows that he has no fucking idea about the men's rights movement. We have no desire to return to the good old days that never were. And once again he claims we have a hate-filled message, yet doesn't ever give any examples. Sure, we question gender roles, feminism, and society's views on masculinity and males in general, but I have to ask, what the fuck is wrong with that? And how exactly is it hateful? Next. Are there some problems with specific instances of unequal treatment? Yes. Is there some anti-male sentiment out there? Yeah, that happens too. But turning these issues into a movement is laughable. It is like a multimillionaire who whines that a tax loophole was closed and he's losing 0.5% of his annual income. Wow, what a fucking arsehole. He knows there is inequality and hatred towards males, he even admits it. But dismisses it all as unimportant. And the last line about the multimillionaire, wow, considering the very large number of homeless males, a men's rights movement issue by the way, that last comment is extremely offensive. Let me ask you, is this the face of a multimillionaire? Or this? Or this? Sure, there are many males at the very top, but there are vastly more at the very bottom, and being male doesn't give them any special rights or privileges. In fact, most people don't give a shit about them. Wow, what a fucking arsehole. Next. Men, especially white men, aren't marginalized, we aren't under attack, and we not in danger of losing the overwhelming privileges society bestows upon us for having pale skin and a penis. However, MRAs have been described as whining children by the women they call feminist bitches. So to any man who feels like he's getting caught up in such a movement because they feel emasculated or are just having trouble relating to women and perhaps sympathizing with Elliot Rodger, I will tell you this, life isn't fair. Life is not fair. Once again, no discussion of real issues, just the race card, the male privilege card, the Elliot Rodger card, and the MRAs are just spoiled little children card, no real arguments made here, just propaganda and bullshit. Next. Women will judge you. Some will judge you based on your appearance, your height, your width, your genitalia, your wealth, your car, your clothes, your acne. In other words, they will judge you the exact same way you judge them. And of course he has to finish off the article with an assertion that MRAs are just insecure. No discussion of real issues, just distractions. Well, I am glad I am through that piece of shit. Remind me never to read Time magazine again. But I'm not done yet. In fact, I'm just getting started. Alexiel posted some screen caps of a conversation he had in Paul Roth's comments section. In case you don't remember Paul Roth.
No, it's not. You know who says that it's normal to feel murderous? Hate groups. Hate groups say that. In the case of men's rights activists, they are spreading a message of misogyny and violence against women, which in the case of Friday night's killings looks like we're very effective.
Remember that jerk? Anyway, Alexiel did a great job at getting his point across, so I thought I would feature it here. Just in case anyone is wondering about the title of this series, well, I think the propaganda part speaks for itself. As for the toxic feminism part, well, that was inspired by the feminist term, toxic masculinity. As you can see, Elizabeth Plank from Part 1 uses the term here. I thought, if feminists are going to use such a term, to describe what they consider to be negative aspects of masculinity, then maybe I should use a similar term to describe the negative aspects of feminism. What's good for the goose, etc., etc. I would actually encourage all of you to use the term. If someone doesn't like it, simply explain that you are not talking about all of feminism, or all feminists, just the toxic parts, you know, like how feminists use the term toxic masculinity. Anyway, back to the comments. Well done, Alexiel, although I doubt you had any influence on Paul's opinions. Judging by the number of thumbs up your comments received, at least some people read and appreciated your well-worded, logical comments. Well done, mate, keep up the good work. Moving on, do you all remember this guy from part 2?
Oh my god. Just, you know, people defending him, and these fucking losers, you know, who defend him, defend his actions, defend his mindset, you know, these you know, fucking men's rights activists, and they're just the fucking losers of the internet, man. Yeah.
Well, he made a reply video, so let's have a look at it.
And here we go. Wow. Yeah, so if you go and look back at the last video I put up, you'll notice that there are a few things that are there now that weren't there yesterday. Turns out my last video got linked to an anti-feminist channel who put out a video where I was featured in it. I think it's like a 40-minute video, and I was featured for like 10, 15 seconds at least. I don't know. I skimmed through it. I could only find myself once, but you know, I was featured. Mama, we made it. But that was posted this morning, and now the video has like twice the amount of views as it did yesterday. Yesterday it was at nearly 60 views. And I'm pretty sure it's just gonna pass 150 sometime tonight. You know, that's fantastic. And it also has 25 dislikes now. So, you know, as of yesterday at 5:56 p.m., there were 0 dislikes on it and only 6 likes. And now, you know, the ratio is like 6 to 25. So nice brigading, guys. Really nice brigading right there. You know, very few of you even left comments. Most of you just disliked it and just moved on.
I haven't actually heard the word brigading before. I'm guessing he is suggesting that we are behind some organized attack on his channel with the intent to downvote, so let's examine this claim. As I am writing this, my video, The Propaganda of Toxic Feminism Part 2, has 6,128 views. And Boss of the Stream's video has 49 downvotes. So out of 6,128 viewers, less than 50 went to his video and downvoted it. If we were brigading, we didn't do a very good job, did we?
You know, the comments aren't even worthwhile on that video anyway. Most of them are just talking about, oh, Elliot Rogers is in an MRA. Why don't classify him as an MRA? Yeah, no, I never said he was an MRA. I never specifically said Elliot Rodger is a men's rights activist. Alright? I didn't even imply that he was. I did imply, however, that the way, you know, his view towards women does fall in line with some of the personal views that I have seen online by some men's rights activists.
Oh look, someone's now trying to dig themselves out of a hole. Yes, it's true, he never said that Elliot Rodger was an MRA, I will give him credit for that, but he did say that MRAs were supporting his actions and his mindset.
There's people defending him, and these fucking losers, you know, who defend him, defend his actions, defend his mindset, you know, these you know, fucking men's rights activists, and they're just the fucking losers of the internet, man. Yeah.
Sorry kid, you shouldn't be surprised that a comment like that pissed some people off.
I did talk about how last time how the people defending Rogers and the people that have Rogers' mindset are fucking losers. I still stick to that. You are fucking losers. Alright? Every single one of you. Okay? I'm not gonna shout out the MRAs this time because you know what? I was just rambling on and I just mentioned them in passing and apparently that's gotten me in just so much trouble.
Keep digging. You might eventually get out of that hole.
So you know what? I'm gonna try and watch what I say now, you know. But now, if this is what the men's rights movement does, is just go after people, you know, they just bash feminism, and you know they just attack anybody who disagrees with them and sort of sides on the feminist side. I didn't even specifically.
Geez, he gets a handful of comments and some downvotes, and he refers to it as getting bashed. Dude, try holding a men's rights event, and see what reaction you get from angry feminists. Suck it up, buttercup.
Back to, you know, if this is what you guys do all the time, if you just go out and attack people on the internet who you don't like and who you don't agree with, then yeah, no, you guys really are fucking losers then, you know. I don't go out of my way to look up, you know, men's rights videos. I don't go out there to dislike them and to start arguments on them. Apparently you guys do. Apparently you guys do it a lot, from what I saw in the comments of the video I was featured in. Wow. Oh my god. You know, and judging by the comments in that video, it really looks like you guys are just anti-feminist rather than men's rights activists. You guys really don't want to work towards equality. You just want to bash the feminist movement.
You notice earlier, he said he skimmed through my video. He didn't actually watch it. If he had have watched the entire video, then maybe he would have some idea of why there were so many angry anti-feminist comments. Why shouldn't people be angry when they are having lies told about them? Why shouldn't we be pissed off when arseholes use the deaths of 6 innocent people for their own political gain? Being pissed off is the only reasonable reaction.
Is all that it seems like. And you know, yeah, there are some critiques, there are definitely plenty of critiques of the modern feminist movement, but they're not all radical social justice warriors like you guys try and paint them to be. You know, all these Tumblr blogs saying kill all men, men are dumb, you know, men are worthless. You guys realize that isn't the majority of fourth wave feminism, right? You guys do realize that makes up like 0.1% of the modern feminist movement, at least, and at most is probably, you know, 5%.
Oh, the irony. So we shouldn't judge all of the feminist movement based on its worst members on places like Tumblr, but we should judge all the men's rights movement based on comments left on YouTube. Okay, got it. Makes perfect sense, no hypocrisy there. Anyway, this guy probably isn't a bad kid, so please don't hassle him. Not that I think 50 downvotes is hassling someone, but if you have to go to his channel and leave a comment, take a leaf out of Alexiel's book, and leave a polite, intelligent comment. If you want to hassle this guy though, go right ahead. Only joking, guys. Kind of joking. Well, that's it for another part of the series. I still have material left, so if you are not sick of these videos yet, and want to see a part 5, just let me know in the comments section. And remember, don't drink the poison Kool-Aid.
You know? But no, I know that there are plenty of activists out there who do good, alright? But the problem is that, you know, at least from what I've seen, you're not doing enough to call out the people who just want to bash feminism, you know?